time a river that flows in one direction? Or does it? What if a single choice could reshape destiny? What if the past whispered secrets meant only for you? What if the future was not set in stone? In this video, we step beyond the veil, into the unknown, into possibility. Shuffle the deck, open your mind, and ask yourself, what if? Welcome, tarot fans. I'm Annabelle. I'm a tarot practitioner and psychic for over 35 years. In this video, we're going to be talking about alternate timelines. So just a little brief on that. We have free will in this life. So at any given time, we can make a choice. Butterfly effect for some of you who like the Ashton Kutcher movie. We can make a choice that changes our outcome, changes our whole future. So what if Diana had lived? What would the effect have been on the royal family, her children, her ex-husband, and their choices on the monarchy? It's going to be a little bit longer of a video than usual. I've got a huge outline here. So, this I think is going to be really cool. I want you guys to drop comments and let me know what you think would have happened to Diana throughout this video. So with all the sections, I've got many parts to this. There's a lot of moving parts on this. Let me know what you think. This channel is entirely driven by your suggestions and your recommendations and your reading requests. So I definitely want to know what you think. And I want to know if you think that I'm onto something or if perhaps I'm not. And I do want to caution you guys when we are looking at prospective futures that a subject may or may not have had, different choices could happen. We're going to look at this at her choices up until the time of her passing in that tragic car accident in that tunnel in Paris. So trigger warning, I don't know what's going to come out of this reading. So if you're triggered by any of the subject matter, check out now. Go watch one of my other fun videos. I got a lot of other fun videos where we're looking at some neat things. But want to remind everybody this Saturday night, I have a remote view, a group remote view going on. We're going to be looking at the Fatty Arbuckle, night of the crime that ruined his career. So I will be guiding it. It's a guided meditation. If you've never done anything like this before, it's a good opportunity to dip in and have some fun with it. You'll be really amazed at what you're going to see. We're going to be doing a guided meditation remote view and not coordinate remote view, which is what I do when I'm looking at volcanoes or crime subject matter. So this is going to be like an easy way for you guys to get in there and kind of play around with that universal fabric where we can experience lives and experiences of others. So if you want to join that, there's a link down below. If you'd like your own magical reading, I've got plenty of time. I may open up, I've got plenty of time later today and tomorrow. But I may be opening up my schedule for Sunday because I know there's a few people that did want to get Sunday reads in. So I may be doing that. So I will drop a link on Saturday if I decide to work on my day off. So let's giddy up. As I bring the cards up, I always ask you guys hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. I am trying, it's a lofty goal, but I'm trying to get to 10,000 before the end of the summer. So that's a big ask, but I think I can do it. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. 10,000 is a big marker for YouTube. It lets YouTube know that this is a viable channel, that 10,000 people want to watch my stuff. So if you're not subscribed, please get in there. About 60% of you that watch my videos are not subscribed, which is a shockingly high number. But let's get it up. We're going to bring up that card for you. Ready, guys? Let's go. I'll just make this nice and big for you. And I think we're going to be using a combination of tarot and Lenormand today. So just to give you kind of the overview, tarot is more pictorial. There's a lot of pictures and direction on here. Lenormand is more verbal. We use a lot of keywords with Lenormand. Psychic ability still kicks in, obviously. So our first section, Diana and Charles. So they divorced in 1996, and it was 1 year before her death. Charles did not marry Queen Camilla. King Charles did not marry Queen Camilla until 2005, nearly a decade later. So, some questions. If Diana had lived, would her relationship with Charles have improved, or would it have grown more strained? Now, we do have some evidence, scant evidence, that they were somewhat cooperative. There's a very cute anecdote about Charles needed, it's kind of crude, but he needed to use the bathroom. And so I guess his helicopter had stopped at Diana's house. He had asked if he could stop over. I know it's such a otherworldly thing. He had asked if he could stop over there. And when he was walking out, she suggestively said, same time next week, and kind of made everyone have a giggle. So would that relationship have blossomed? Would we have seen improvement in that relationship? Yes, because all of the shadiness is out on the table. And I think that the two of them kind of learned about the bitter actions of each other. Now, bitterness, jealousy, anger can make people behave in very, very strange ways, sometimes ways that will actually hamstring themselves. So I don't know if that translates to other cultures, but hamstring is like when you kind of trip yourself up. Just saying. So I do think that all of their sneaky tactics would have been out on the table and performed. And so, what are we going to do? Our bag of tricks is empty. We know what we are. We know who we are. We know how we behave. We know the things we like and we don't like. And let's just get on. Now panic and freak out. No more panicking and freaking out. So what were the lessons that Charles would have learned from Diana later? That sometimes it's not good to be alone. And sometimes you have to be the doer and refresh the things in your world. Sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes it's not best to do things by the book, and sometimes it is best to follow one's passion and wipe the slate clean and not hold grudges. What would Diana have learned? So I'll shuffle a little bit more. What would Diana have learned from that relationship? She would have learned eventually that misery, and I'm going to say manufactured misery affects not only yourself, but the people around you. It is going to be a caustic cloud that affects everyone. And I think she would have realized that this would have affected herself, her children, and the people around her very negatively. So I do think that eventually she would have laid down her sword. Would she have laid down her sword? Privately, no. I think privately she always would have been fairly bitter. But publicly, I think she would have been fairly pleasant. So what do I mean by privately? I think she still would have gossiped with her friends. I think she still would have had things to say in closed quarters. Oh, he is daft. He is adult. He is a knob. Like, she would have called him all of those things. I can't believe he's doing this now. But I don't think she would have done that publicly. I think she would have really corrected the tactics where she was using PR in the press to affect his reputation. That being said, would Charles still have married Camilla? Would he have still married Camilla if Diana was still around? Would he have still married her? Yes. Yes, he would have. Why not? In some cases, the heart wants what the heart wants, which I don't really like that saying, but because you do have to be sensible and you do have to make practical decisions when you get married, when you can't just be all like starry-eyed and in love. You really do have to kind of look at the bigger picture. If you are going to be building a family, if you're going to be building a legacy, as one is doing in the royal family, you do have to be quite careful about that. So I think it's interesting that he responded to duty by marrying Diana at his mother's behest. And then he went for what his heart wanted later. I think that he felt he had done his time in relationship purgatory, and he had to hide his true feelings and be with a person, or publicly be with a person whom he did not love. It's unfortunate. But I wish him well with Camilla. I think Camilla's a very interesting person. Let me know what you guys think of Camilla down in the comments. I know that when Diana was alive and there was, the Rottweiler, she called it. I love Rottweilers, by the way. I know she was not very fond of her and had a lot of things to say about her. What was it? Mrs. Tiggy Winkle. What was her name? Tiggy, the kids' nanny and the one who supported them after she passed away. She had a lot of things to say about her too. So allegedly, the three in the marriage was the Tiggy gal. So how would Diana have responded to the marriage with Camilla? Would she have responded with grace? Would she have been resistant? Would she have publicly vilified them? What would she have done? Privately vilified them? What would she have done? How would her reaction be to the marriage of Charles and Camilla, Prince Charles and Camilla? Oh, that's not encouraging. But what was she hoping for? So I do think she would have had her own brand of jabs thrown in there. I was the kingmaker, just so you know. My boys are mine. You can never get rid of me. I think she would have inserted herself as a semi-constant presence. I do think there would have been some discussion about how you can't remove me from history, which I think is a fair assessment. I do think that I think she would have been bitter about it. I think she would have been upset that her adversary won out at the end of the day. I think she would have been upset about that. But I also think that here, the poor communication that she would have put out in the world, I think she would have dropped some information here and there. I think she would have. I think she would have thrown some shade through her gossip circuit. And I do think it would have gotten to the press eventually. So I think there would have been things like Camilla doesn't brush her teeth before she goes to bed. Like really stupid. Camilla has toe fungus. Like, really stupid stuff, but stuff that we don't necessarily want to know about the royal family. Like we do want to know, but we shouldn't know. Would Diana have used her influence to affect Camilla's place in the monarchy? Would that have happened within the courtier system? Would that have happened? Oh, there's impatience. It wouldn't have been allowed. It would not have been allowed for a hot minute, not at all. Any of her efforts would have been thwarted by the king and by the queen and Prince Philip. She would not have been able to really affect that. And I think Prince Philip would have been the one to have a word with her. May I have a word? He's kind of like my dad. Like, you don't want to have a word with your dad like that. Let's have a word. My dad has a salon at his house, and when you get called into the salon, you're in trouble. And the last time I got called into the salon, it was actually a hilarious conversation. So get in the salon. What? So what would Diana have thought about Camilla being called Queen Camilla? Now, we know that prior to the Queen Elizabeth II's passing, prior to that, it was expected that Camilla was going to be Queen Consort, but Charles changed that for her to become Queen proper. So let's see what Diana would have thought of Camilla becoming queen. Well, now we're stuck with her. So what came into my head? I think she would have. I think she would have had some things to say. Again, very craftily phrased shade. Very, very craftily phrased shade. So, but I think it would. I don't think it would have been out in the public. She may have dropped that. Well, now we're stuck with her kind of thing. It's very funny. All right. So Diana and the Queen, mutual respect or quiet distance. So despite their public tensions, the Queen had issued a live tribute to Diana. And it was after much kerfuffle behind the scenes. They did have to kind of adjust the protocol because I think the flag, they didn't know whether to lower it or not, but the flag is always up when the standard is always up when the Queen is in residence. They didn't want to lower it. They didn't know if they should make a big deal. And then came the flood of flowers. I mean, it really was an unprecedented funerary service that organically came to be. That sea of flowers was unbelievable. Those of you that are watching that are too young, go look up the pictures of Buckingham Palace and the sea of flowers that was outside of it. It was unreal. There were like no flowers left in England, apparently. No flowers left on the England, Scotland, Wales. There was no flowers left. It was crazy. So if Diana had lived, how would her relationship have evolved with Queen Elizabeth? And we're going to do a little round the world here, kids. We're going to do a little round the world. So here, not a member of the family, silencing her, a little bit of stress there, but then giving her back a bit of a voice, giving her back a bit of a bit more substance in the royal family. I think she would have been seen at more royal events as the boys got older. You can't not have her at the weddings. You can't not have her at graduation. I mean, that's the case. I think it would have been sporadic and kind of interesting when she showed up. I think they would have let her be a private citizen, and every now and then, ooh, a little glitz and glam. Here's Princess Diana walking in the door. And I do think they would have been very careful about that, not to outshine Camilla. Well, let's face it. I mean, she was going to outshine her anyway. We're going to look at her relationship with Camilla before this is over, before this round the world is over. So I do think that they would have found a place as the king's mom. Like that's a title. That's a title right there. The king's mom. So I do think that they would have initially, it would have been very complicated post-divorce. We only had a year of Diana on her own. Post-divorce, I think we would have had more complications. But I think eventually they would have brought her back in. And I'm not saying as a working royal, just to be clear, not as a working royal, but as a presence that was brought in. She wouldn't have been at state dinners or anything like that, but she would have been a presence that would have been showing up periodically. So we would have seen her going into Buckingham Palace, maybe to pick up the kids, going into Windsor, picking up the kids, those kinds of things. So, but it would have been sporadic, not a regular basis. They would have furnished her with the ability to have her own existence. And this is the queen being extremely generous and allowing her to kind of choose her own adventure, and support Diana in her own adventures. Oh, I'm going the wrong way, kids. I'm going the wrong way. We got to go back toward the middle. So there we go. This is looking nice. So I do think that her exit was somewhat fated. I am going to say that. I do think, and I think I've said that in readings before. But I think that she could have exited in a much more happier climate than what she passed away in. I think there was some struggle and difficulty. It's always hard to be away from your kids when you're co-parenting, and I think there would have been some struggle and difficulty with that. But I think she would have managed just fine until an ultimate exit. I think she would have gotten to a much, much better place with the queen until that exit. And I think that there is regret that she didn't just stick it out, close her eyes, think of England. I know that means something else, but and just ignore the relationship with Camilla. And I do think that the queen, perhaps Queen Elizabeth II, I think the queen perhaps said, can't you just play ball and have your separate life and not be bitter about it? I think there was a little bit of that. I that's not to say that the queen was interested in extramarital stuff, but I think given the circumstances, she just was like, can't you just make this work? So yes, I do think that they would have been cooperative. So just real quick, if Diana had been brought back in for certain events, not on the balcony, nothing like that, not, formal royal dinners, things like that, would she have outshined Camilla in the public perception always? Huh. That is very interesting, because I do think eventually public profile would have taken over. And I think Diana would have realized that the negativity that she was spewing was casting poorly on her. I think she would have realized it. I don't think they would have been best friends and like having sleepovers and braiding each other's hair or anything like that. But I think that they would have eventually found a comfortable choreography. Let's put it that way. And I think Diana would have shown on her own, there's no kill switch on awesome. So I think she would have shown on her own no matter what. And she would have played it down for Camilla in the spirit of not trying to show her up. Remember the revenge dress. Camilla's not wearing that revenge dress. So I think Diana would have shown some grace in that circumstance eventually. I don't think right away. I think eventually. So no, I don't think back in formal events. I don't think she would have been exiled, though. I think she would have been an ex-law. That's what we call them in my family, ex-laws. So let's take a look at Diana and William. So Diana wanted to, in her Bashir video, she said she wanted to be known as the queen of people's hearts. Now, she also hoped that William would modernize the monarchy. William certainly has become the prince of people's hearts. And, say what you will about him. A lot of people say he's a hot temper. He's very stubborn. The best leaders are very stubborn, adamant. They are compelled to have their way sometimes. Is that a bad thing? I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think, being determined is very different from being a tyrant. Would William Would William have become the people's prince under her tutelage? No, I think she would have outshone him. I think she would have outshone him. And there's a judiciousness of her and her parenting. I think she would have, I hate to say it, I think she would have kind of cultivated Harry a little bit more. That's what I'm getting at this point. She would have worked on cultivating Harry a little bit more rather than promoting William. I think, the natural course of events, William would have been a little bit of a showboat anyway. Would William have, so historically, Diana leaned on William emotionally. He was only 15 when she passed away, so a little bit of inappropriateness there. But would he have resented her for that emotional openness as an adult? Or would he have grown closer to her? How would that have affected him? Her emotional openness. I think he would have pushed her for more counseling. And not just more counseling, but better counseling. I think he would have been a really great navigator in saying, look, this therapy is not working for you. Let's find you some therapy that's going to work for you better. Let's find you a person who is better suited to manage a royal, ex-royal, mother of a king. Like, she really did go into a no man's land in terms of title and stature. It's just by her own charmingness that, we all, fell in love with her and, wanted to still see her. But I do think he would have been wise beyond his years in terms of getting her to better therapy. And that's the thing, when someone is suffering around you, it is very, very important to point them in the right direction, whether that's a counselor, an app, a religious leader, something like that. You can go talk to your rabbi, your priest. There's so many outlets for people to get help for mental health issues or for just emotional issues, just going through a terrible thing. And I think that the stigma of, being crazy has softened in the last 15 or so years. I think we've gotten much more comfortable with, no one's a perfect fit. The, clean corners of the 1960s and 1950s really don't exist. Serenity now, insanity later. Yeah, we all learned that from Seinfeld. I do think that this would have evolved, and I think she would have, with William's help, pardon me, guys, I think she would have eventually found a better emotional footing. And I think he would have been steering her in that direction. I think he would have called her out on her nonsense. So here's the big question. How would she have reacted to Kate Middleton? Oh, Catherine. I'm sorry, Kate. Sorry, I said Kate. Shame on me. I never call her Kate. How would she have responded to Catherine Middleton? I'm saying Catherine Middleton, not the Princess of Wales, because she was just a regular gal. St. Andrews. I do think that she would have liked her. And I do think that she would have seen her as an addition and not subtraction to her world. So, the the little rhyme goes, a son is a son until he takes a wife, a daughter is a daughter for life. So I think that's how it goes. But I think she would have seen her as another person coming in rather than someone taking her son away. Her duty to the line of succession and the royal family and the honor that she held for her son as a would-be king, I think this was a very good fit for her. A lot of positive things here. Two of Cups, the Lovers, the Empress, the Devil in reverse is actually good in this sense because this isn't someone that he is frivolously getting involved with. I do think she liked that this individual was fairly private and not going to be splashing everything all around. I do think she admired Kate's stability in terms of her disposition, her mental disposition, and not necessarily her intelligence. I don't think I don't think Diana valued people on intelligence. I think cleverness and humor, which are markers of great intelligence. I do think that she would have found her clever and engaging, but I don't think she would have had the same respect for Catherine's knowledge and study and that sort of thing. Her academic achievements, let's put it that way. So, what would she have thought of the Middleton family? Let's just. No, she would have found a great curiosity of the Middleton family due to their heritage. And I'm not sure what that is. There's something very interesting about their heritage that brought a different aspect into the line. So, and the Middletons were upper middle class. So, we would call them upper middle class here in the United States, but just regular folks. They weren't nobility or anything like that. I don't know what their ties are to that. If you guys know what that is, anyone who's a subject of the kingdom, let me know what that is. I don't know that much about Catherine Middleton's family line. Don't know much about it. Don't know much. So, would she have played a key role in the wedding? And also, their public image and the raising of the Wales children. She would have loved that little girl. She would have loved that Princess Charlotte. I know that already. Would she have played a key role in their wedding? Yes. What else? Tell me more about the wedding. There would have been some issues with that guest list. I'm just going to say that right now. There would have been some issues with the guest list about who was invited, who wasn't. I think she would have wanted a few more of her splashy people in there. And I think that would have been an issue. Some of her new friends she would have wanted them on the list. What about their public their public image? No, she would not have interfered with this. Their public image was going to be shaped by the palace. Absolutely. Let me move these down here a little bit center so you guys aren't crooked. Not crooked, but looking crooked. I want you tipping your heads. So, what about the raising of the Wales children? Oh, yeah, there she is. Grandma. Oh, ma, oh, ma, oh, ma. She would have liked more access to them, and she would have fostered some time with them. Now, this makes me think that on this current timeline that I'm reading, that she probably would have gone to the United States. We're going to get there because this means she wouldn't have seen them a lot. She would not have been with them all of the time. She would have had carved out time for them. Neat. So I'm interested to see if she would have moved to California. California. All right. Let's talk about Harry. Harry has said in multiple interviews that he thinks his mother's spirit is guiding him. I am not in disagreement with that, but I think, again, I've said numerous times that I believe anyone can be psychic. We all have this ability. We all have moments of precognition. We all have moments where we say, hey, buy that lottery ticket, and it winds up winning us $50 on a scratch off. I don't doubt that he feels his mother guides him. The problem that I have is that I think he always uses a translator. I don't think that he communes with her. I think he asks other people to provide guidance. And I believe he has gone to her psychic, the psychic that she used or the medium that she used. I know we heard at the, was it at the Jubilee that Meghan was overheard saying that your mother spoke to me while I was doing yoga this morning. You know, not cool. If you want to commune with a dearly beloved that's on the other side, give it a shot yourself before you start paying people thousands of dollars. It's really a good idea. And I'm saying that as a professional psychic. I do this my full-time job. You know, when we start asking people to provide guidance or things like that, you know, you have to be careful that it's not someone who says, well, I'm going to charge you $1 million and I will be your conduit to the beyond. You know, that can get a little dicey. There are some people out there that will do that. I like to discuss that with my clients that want mediumship. I don't do the big mediumship parties for my own reasons. You know, I do most of my work from home. It's rare that I go out and I do big party. It's mediumship. Sometimes people have different expectations. You know, some people actually expect that like you're going to manifest a visible spirit for them to see. And I just, it's just not my wheelhouse. You know, I'm much happier, you know, working with people, showing them how they can direct their world and, you know, using remote viewing to find lost objects and things like that. You know, I think that that's a much better practice for me. Are there some great mediums out there? Absolutely. Absolutely. There are wonderful mediums out there. Can I do mediumship? Yes. Is it my strongest psychic skill? No, it is not. It's not something that I actually am much more comfortable doing other things. So just like if you were a gymnast, you'd be better on the uneven bars or the balance beam or the floor. Some of us are great at vaults. You know, we all have different skills. That's why it's good to surround yourself when you're someone like me with different mediums and different psychics and card readers and shamans and all kinds of fun stuff. I got a zany person for everything. But let's take a look. Would Harry's path have been different if Diana had lived? Let's put a little fine point on this. What would Harry's personality be like if Diana had lived? And I'm actually going to go to Lenormand. Let's do a little Lenormand, guys. We're going to do a 9 square. Whip, dog, birds. Lady, that's mom. Book, coffin. Child, fish, letter. Huh. So this is kind of cool. Good news for Harry. So the ridiculousness of him as a child, the repetitive behaviors, the annoying behaviors, the rambunctiousness, I think would have been reeled in. I am not a doctor. I can't diagnose him as any given thing, but I do think that this is something. I think he was very similar to the way that I behaved as a child. I was wound up as a kid, very, very wound up, very energetic. I always needed to be moving. That was why I was a gymnast, a swimmer, a diver, skateboarded, surfed. I did everything. Anything that was physical, I was much better at expelling my energy that way. And I think that that would have been that kind of rambunctiousness, I'm going to call it rambunctiousness, would have been pulled in. I think there would have been a concerted effort to pull him in. I do think that Charles would have been very resistant to this. But I think that Diana and her openness to alternative therapies would have worked wonders for him. I think it would have worked wonders for him. And I do think he would have resolved this issue much, much younger. Good points there. Now, I also think that the scales would have fallen from his eyes. We all look at our parents with rose-colored glasses, right? You know, they can do no wrong. They, we fight with them about like curfews and, coming in on time. Angus, we had a thunderstorm coming in last night, and I told him, come home right after band practice. There's a big thunderstorm coming. And he rolled up and was like, "See, I'm home. Oh, and it's not even raining." And I was like, just do this for me. Like, stop it. So I think, we disagree with our parents like that, but I think that his goddessifying of his mother, and I remember she was named after a goddess. So a goddess, Diana, was she a goddess? Yes, I think she was. But anyway, I do think that he would have resolved this exaltation of his mother at some point. I think the scales would have fallen from his eyes. He would have seen her as a normal person. Down here, I think that his childlike wonder, his exuberance, his joie de vivre, his zest for life, I think would have served him well. I think that would have been the definition of his character. I don't think she would have allowed him to go out into the world with a face like thunder. I think she would have modified him, and in having her around, I think he would have said, "Well, I'm gonna." There's a line from Dazed and Confused. "I'm gonna blah 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 blah, and as long as I'm stuck in this place, I'm gonna blah 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 as long as I'm stuck in this place." I think this would have been, "I'm gonna have the best of the world while I am stuck in this place," and it would have been a lifetime kind of thing. While I am stuck in this lifetime. So, boy, this video is going long, guys. This video is going long. I'm sorry, but here's your big question. Would she have supported Meghan Markle? What would she have thought of Meghan Markle? Do we want to go to tarot? No, let's stick with the Lenormand. What would she have thought of Meghan Markle? She's a lady. Whoa, 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 she's a lady. He would not have married Meghan Markle if Diana had lived. Why do I say that? Because I don't even think she gets a chance to get her foot in the door. I think Diana would have been pining away for either Chelsea or Cressida. I think Chelsea or Cressida, and I always want it to be Chelsea, but I don't know. I don't know here. I'm going to tell you guys, I don't know everything. I thought Chelsea was perfect for him. I thought he benefited from being with Chelsea. I don't know if Chelsea benefited from being with him, but I think he benefited from being with Chelsea. And I do think that she would have said, this is your match. This is your match, and take care with this. And that's what happens here. She brings in a contingency, but no. She brings in a group contingency. Do I want to say that? I don't want to say that. She brings in a group of people that explain where he is going wrong and basically teach him to be a little bit better in the relationship. And I think that that is part, there's a level of selfishness that comes with just being a young person. Your world is your only world. And I had an issue with my daughter. Elle had, she texted me something and I read it wrong because I'm going a mile a minute. And she got very frustrated with me when I didn't remember it. And I had to gently explain to her that I have a million things going on in my head at once. Everyone has doctor's appointments and dentist appointments and all these things. And I have to keep track of them. I have to keep track of when they're due. I have to keep track of when bills are due, what's for dinner, all that stuff. Are the kittens fed? Are the cats fed? Is the dog fed? Who's eating? Is there something for Greg to have when he gets home from work? There's a million things in my head. And I had to explain to her that, I can't know everything, even when told. Sometimes some of that stuff is going to slip over in the overflow. So and I think he would have been explained that a partner, you really do have to support, you have to take 50% of the weight. And I think she would have used the failure of her marriage as a teachable moment. So this, I think, is kind of cool. We have the coffin, the book, and the stork for the future. And I wonder if she would have pushed him toward a bachelor life, like would have given him the choice of your past love or go and do a military world, like a military kind of life. I know, notwithstanding his military history, I know, but I think his mother would have said, if you are not going to pick this English rose, or South African rose, if you're not going to pick this gal, then perhaps you need to throw yourself into the military and charity. And kind of figure it out from there. So Invictus Games, yeah, I think Invictus Games would have been the order of the day. I think she would have nudged him toward that, but I think she would have nudged him toward some other things that don't occur every 2 years. I think she would have suggested that maybe some patronages would, and I do think the Queen would have listened, would have taken audience with this. I think they would have pushed him more towards supporting military type individuals and patronages. So I think that would have been very interesting. I think she would have illustrated to him that there's a nobility in service to the men and women who fought for the country, in an attempt to really give him that kind of selflessness that one needs when they get into a marriage. But I think it would have been pick one of the English roses, pick an English rose, or take some more time to yourself. I don't think she would have supported Meghan Markle. I don't think she would have. I think there would have been some intrigue. So let's look at what her relationship with Meghan Markle would have been like. Let's see, cantankerous. Ooh, it's a long video, guys. I'm sorry. I hope you're still with me. Yeah, she would have said no. She would have been the mother-in-law from hell. Yeah. Would she have encouraged Harry to leave the institution? Would she have encouraged him to do that? No. She would have explained to him that it is a dirty, dirty outside world. I'm in it. You don't want to be here. She would have encouraged more support. And I think this is Prince Philip. I think she really would have enlisted Prince Philip to get Harry pointed in the right direction. Could her continued presence have prevented Spare? Now, presumably, Spare would not have been written if he wasn't with Meghan Markle. Would Harry have done the tell-all? What if he didn't marry Meghan? Would he still have done like some kind of tell-all, grumbling about sausages and smaller bedrooms and those kinds of things? No, he wouldn't have done it. Wouldn't have done it. So the point is moot. He would not have written that book. Let's talk about the modern monarchy and Diana's legacy in a 2025 timeline where she's still here. Just to be sure, she lost her Royal Highness title after she was divorced, but she did retain Princess of Wales. She was still the Princess of Wales. And that's a title that's still very, we still call her the late Diana, the late Princess of Wales, or some variation of that, some facsimile of that. So if Diana had lived, would there have been firmly a budding second court in the United Kingdom? Would we have seen that? Would we have seen support forming around her as a second court? I think she would have worked with the monarchy if that started to happen and would have prevented that from happening. And this, I think, is where she gets brought into some more events, because who's worried about, an overthrow of the royal family, a usurper in the castle? I think most monarchs are, lesser now in this kind of day and age. But I do think that if she saw people starting to call for her to step in and be, the queen mom or whatever, trying to usurp Camilla's role, I do think she would have worked with the monarchy and said, no, I don't want any of this. We're not going into revolution. We are going to stay the course as the royal family, and I want my son to fulfill his destiny. Find and fulfill your destiny. Name that tune if you know what it was, that movie. Name that tune. So, would the monarchy have reformed? Oh, what would her popularity have remained in 2025 on this particular timeline? What is her popularity? Popular. You're gonna be popular. The world. All around the world. Gotta spread the word. Don't know what you heard. It's gonna be a better day. It's all around the world. Gotta spread the word. Don't know what you heard. Gonna be a better day. So, I think, again, I do think that there is a fated going off the planet. So, I think what we have now is very different from what we would have had she left the planet a little bit later. I think there would be less deifying of her. I think there would be, I think she would have revealed herself to be more mortal than people thought of her. And this isn't like, I'm not impugning her character. I just think the evolution of her public perception would have changed. I do think she would have become somewhat different. And I think that the public opinion of her, I think she really would have separated from the palace. I really do. And I am going to say this, like there would have been another car accident on the Pacific Coast Highway or something like that. You know, there would have been another accident that would have been a big splashy news event that, you know, that kind of time stopped. I remember the night that she passed away. I had actually come back from, I was doing something. I was either working or at school, and I came back and my roommate's scooter said, dude, he really talks like that. Princess Diana was in a car accident. I was like, that's crazy. And I had a crazy boyfriend at the time who was blowing up the phone. And I told Scooter, I go, I'm just going for a drive. Like, I'm just going to go for a drive. I'll be back in a few hours. And I hopped on one of our freeways and just headed west. And I was in New Jersey. And when I got back, he was like, dude, she died. I was like, what? And we stayed up all night. And two of us were crying, big sappy saps. But we were watching the news coverage on it, and it was wild. So would Diana have moved to the United States? Would she have moved specifically to California? Malibu is coming to mind. Boom, poor judgment. Boom. Yep, she would have done that, guys. She would have done that. And it would have been a life of leisure. You know, there's paparazzi in the United States. Don't listen to Meghan Markle. There's absolutely paparazzi there. But she would have, I think she would have gone to Malibu. Malibu is a beautiful place. It really is a beautiful place. And I think she would have gone there specifically for the weather. You know, it really, if you've never been to California, and you know, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous state. It really is. It's a lovely state. But there's just a vibe there that is so much more casual and low key than, you know, like the stuffy country club culture of where I am in New Jersey. It's you know, I mean, we're in farmland here, but you know, some of the places like where my parents, where I grew up with my parents, you know, it's a little stuffy, a little more formal. I mean, it's still beach town, but you know, it's like your white shorts better be pressed, sister. So I do think she would have gone there, and I think that would have been that's, I think, why we don't see her having a super influence on Prince George and Louis and Princess Charlotte, because I don't think that she's as present. And so I think that that becomes problematic because they can't travel as freely to her. So she would have to go back and have like kind of infrequent. She would have had a small property in, I think, Windsor. I think it would have been Windsor once those kids started to come out, once the Waleses started to have children. I think she would have had a small property in Windsor, possibly Frogmore Cottage. Who knows? But I, you know, I do think she would have had a small property there, like a small cottage that she could, you know, go in, not have any staff or anything like that. I think they would have warmed up to that. So, interesting. So would she have continued her humanitarian work? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, Angelina, whoa, wow, that is a powerful spread right there, kids. Those are some big players right there. Woo! So, wow, heavy hitters. I do think she would have had the backing of a lot of organizations. I think her presence would have been highly coveted. And I do think, I'm going to say this, I think she would have partnered up with Angelina Jolie. I think that there would have eventually been some crossing of the paths with the two of them if she had had some kind of longevity. Angelina Jolie is what, in her late 40s, mid 40s, something like that. So I think that they would have partnered up at some point. And I think Angelina Jolie would have been a bit more of the Diana successor than what Meghan Markle wants to be. So, would she have remarried? Would she have remarried? She was dating Dodie. I think he was a bit of a playboy. You know, there's that heart surgeon that she had her heart set on. Would she have ever remarried? Would she have ever remarried? No. No, which is a terrible thing for a Cancer. You know, Cancers, we like family, we like stability. I think she would have done it on her own. Does that mean she wouldn't have had like a paramour or a certain someone who was special? No, she would have had, someone who was special, but no one in her house. That's kind of the thing. You can visit, and then you got a GTFO. So I do think that that's a very interesting perspective here. I think she was done with marriage, one and done, not doing it again. I don't want to do this again. And I do think that she had that attitude even prior to the events that happened in our actual timeline right now. So very cool. Very cool. Let me know if you think she would have remarried. Let me know what you think about that. So, interesting stuff. I did not expect Malibu or Angelina Jolie to pop into my head. I did not expect them to show up. So, very, very interesting stuff. And I do think that the Queen had a great deal of respect for Diana's respect for the monarchy. So I see that possibly would have calmed down. And I think leaning into Prince Philip, who, I'm sorry, much stronger in terms of personality energetically than King Charles is. I think Prince Philip would have been a great help to her. I think he would have been very, very supportive, as we did see he was after the passing of Diana. So, what part of Diana's alternate legacy speaks to you the most? What resonates with you guys the most? Let me know in the comments down below. I want to know what you think. And also, let me know what you want Royals and Scandals to be next week. So, I'm more than happy to take your requests, drop them in the comments down below. It can be a royal, it can be a scandal, it can be a royal scandal, it can be whatever you want. This Thursday content pillar is a little bit flexible on that. And I do want to remind you guys, you can book private readings with me if you want to look at some alternate futures for yourself where you still have the ability to make changes in the future. Would love to see some of you on my schedule, and I'll let you know. I'll do a community post if I'm going to open up for Sunday. If I'm going to give you guys my Sunday, it depends on what the weather's like. If it's really, really nice out, I may go over and visit my parents and hop in their pool and float around like a big sea lion. I'll bring a float over there and just sea lion out. Or if it's a rainy day, I will stay here. And I know we have some weather coming up. I think today I will stay home and enjoy that thunderstorm with my cats. So thanks, everybody. I know this was a long reading. This is one of my longest readings. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope you had a nice cup of tea or a nice cup of coffee while you were watching this. Most of all, thank you so much. I really appreciate all the support, the likes, the subscribes, the memberships, and also your comments and your friendship here. So appreciate all of you. Without you guys, this wouldn't happen. So thank you so much. And I will see you in the future.